People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to today's episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a topic that differentiates a little bit. We call it the leadership team meeting. And it's different from other regular meetings that we have. And so we're going to talk about how often should you have a leadership team meeting, whether it's either executives or it's a project lead, rules of engagement, how are they different from a normal meeting that we would have on a day-to-day basis. And then lastly, the follow-up, how it's different and how it's probably more important as far as meeting our objectives and everything. Yeah. So if we've got a leadership team meeting, whether it's executive or whether it's project, what do you find in the trenches is the best frequency for those meetings?
I think it's as much as you need to. I mean, I think
that's a scary thought.
Yeah, well, but I say need, right, is, am I having a weekly meeting because I feel like I should have a weekly leadership team meeting? Yeah. Or, am I having them, what is the right frequency for it? It could be a monthly meeting that covers a deep dive into where you're at against objectives, and maybe one other meeting during the month where you're checking in on projects, right? It's the leadership team meeting, whether it's the product team or a leadership team, is what's the purpose of it? And the purpose of it is a very high level, the pulse of the business at the top level of things like your vision and your mission, how you're executing against top objectives. And I think where people end up having a lot of them, if you start having weekly 2-hour leadership team meetings, you're diving down into the weeds at that point. And that's where you really want to come back and say, what's the purpose of these leadership team meetings? It's where are we at in this project, or where are we at on the larger scale of the business? I think that's what drives how often you want to have a meeting.
So what you're saying is frequency really depends on the team.
The team, yeah. And avoiding, the purpose of the meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're meeting, once or twice a week as a leadership team,
right?
Maybe you should, because the place is on fire and you need to be checking in on those issues. But those aren't leadership team meetings. Right. This is, where are we at on, if you keep it up to the high level, that's what your leadership team meeting is focused on. I think the danger is you start diving into the weeds without all the people who live in the weeds at the table, and you start making crazy decisions without that input. So I think it's important.
And in my opinion, it's something that can change. So initially at the beginning of the project, maybe it may be a weekly meeting, but as the project goes on, the group should really ask themselves, do we need to be meeting on a weekly basis? Can we push it out to every 2 weeks? And so I would see it as constantly question your frequency. Just don't accept it as, well, that's the way we always do it, because then you're going to start getting into the weeds as you talk about.
Are you suggesting we should actually ask ourselves if meetings are valuable, Lou?
Yeah,
because that's crazy. That's crazy talk.
I know. And that's why people hire me, because I'm crazy. So, okay. Next, rules of engagement. In a previous video, we talked about rules of engagement for your, what I'll call normal meetings, where we're solving problems, making quick decisions on daily issues that are happening. What particular, are the rules different at that level, leadership level, as to the associate level?
Well, one, I don't know if they're different, because I think all the rules we talked about in the other video still apply at a leadership team meeting. But
so there should be an agenda.
Right, there should be an agenda, there should be facilitation.
Right.
We should have things like don't talk over one another, because, at that point the egos in the room are even higher at the leadership team meeting, right?
And courtesy cursing.
Respectful cursing. Is the greatest rule you can ever have in a meeting. But I think you also have to talk about, what are the outcomes of the meeting? Well, one is, what's the level of the meeting? Let's agree this is a 30,000 foot level meeting where we're looking at mission and vision and high level objectives of the business, right? So that's a big one. I think another one to look at is, when you walk out of that meeting, what is the message to the troops when we come out of the meeting? I can't have my director of marketing saying the place is on fire and my operations person coming out and saying everything was awesome. Let's, what is the message coming out of the meeting? What are we all agreeing to on here? And so I think you need to kind of address those things as you go through the meeting. And those, some other meeting, what are some other rules of engagement you think are going to be critical for that level of meeting?
Well, in that, I think going back to the definition of the meeting, we're not solving problems here.
Right.
We are looking at milestones, we're looking at progress, and we may identify problems or identify decisions that need to be made, but one of the rules is we don't solve problems here.
Right.
We point them out, and then someone from this group may go to another group and help solve that problem. But at this level, we're not solving problems unless they have to do with the progress of the plan itself.
Right.
So not dive into that. And I think keeping that perspective, I think that would be the number one rule, is keeping that perspective. Otherwise, your leadership meeting turns into a typical project meeting.
Yeah, well, and it's a huge temptation to want to fix issues in that meeting.
We're natural problem solvers. Yeah. We like to solve problems quickly and make decisions quickly.
And unfortunately, you may just make some pronouncements in that meeting that don't really pass the objectivity test or the test of the people who are on the front line. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a pretty big rule is we don't solve problems here. I like that rule.
Yeah, because we don't have the data. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, in a leadership meeting, follow-up is a lot more important here to make sure that the progress is continuing and that the issues that are preventing us from progressing need to be resolved and everything. And so talk to me about, after a leadership meeting, what would your plan about, what would your follow-up be?
Well, I think some of the things we just talked about, right, that there are, this isn't a problem-solving meeting. It may be a problem-identified meeting, though. So I think a big piece of when you start talking about follow-up is you're going to identify issues. So if you're looking at your high-level, vision and you're looking at your annual objectives, and as you're reporting out on that, you see, hey, we've got a problem here. It's not let's dive in and spend the next 25 minutes of this meeting on that problem. It is to say, let's get that up on the board as a problem, one, that needs to be followed up on. Two, who at this table owns it to report back on, we're up or we're down or what we need to do. And then that person is, who are you going to pull in to pull that together? And really clearly identify and keep that. I mean, in my last company, we actually had a big whiteboard where those issues that came up, we kept them up on the wall, and who was going to follow up on them. And so we could check in and see what was going on in those meetings. Right. And so, if you don't have kind of a conference room assigned to that, at least get it on the side on some sort of, computer or electronic place where you can track what those issues are. So I think follow-up is not just saying, hey, these are the things that are hanging out after this meeting, is who's responsible, what's the outcome we're trying to get,
and potential resources that may be needed to solve that problem.
Absolutely.
So that if you're taking a problem or a situation that needs to be resolved and pushing it down to the next level, the people who are going to be actually doing the problem solving, giving them a budget, so to speak, of resources.
Yeah.
Not just financially, but okay, we know this is a major issue because according to the plan, if this doesn't get resolved, we're going to be 2 weeks off of our deadline, or we're going to go over budget. So we're going to say that we can allocate up to this 3 people. 12 hours a week to be able to do that. I think that needs to be part of that as well.
Yeah, for one of my meetings for my leadership team was a quick check-in meeting where we just had kind of a big board of all the major projects in the company, and they were either on target, off target, or danger zone.
Right.
And we didn't talk about anything that was on target. We only talked about off target and danger zone, and those are the ones we checked up in and are checked up on. So we always kind of knew visually. We talked about vision in some of the collaboration discussions, but you could visually see where are we in trouble and where aren't we. And before the meeting, everybody had to move the Post-it notes to the appropriate column.
Right.
And we only talked about those we had to talk about. We didn't waste time with a 25-minute check-in on a project we know about. We know what the outcome was supposed to be. Why do we have to spend time knowing it worked?
Yeah, and if colors are alarming, you could have green for those that are on target, yellow for those that are, we're getting close here, and then red for, we're in trouble here. We need to solve those. So, and again, it goes back to collaboration, being visual. I see a red problem. I know that needs to be addressed real quick.
Absolutely. Yep. Perfect.
All right. So key takeaways for today. Easy for me to say. Key takeaways for today. I've picked up that the leadership meeting is definitely different than the everyday meeting.
Right.
You're not solving problems. You're not making decisions in this meeting. What you're doing is you're identifying the problems and the decisions that need to be made in order to maintain progress. And the primary responsibility of a leadership meeting is to watch the progress of the project, the company, whatever it is, based upon the mission and the vision that has been put forward.
And the big milestones. Yeah, that's a big piece of it. And I think the one thing is, things are going to come up in that meeting, and you have to have the rule that says we're not going to chase down that rabbit hole here. But the secondary rule to that, which is who is going to chase down the rabbit hole and when are they going to report back. And so I think it's really important to say we're not just going to let those things die off. We're going to keep them identified. We're going to keep them tracked, but we're not going to spend time in this meeting on those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
and that brings up a good point, is that your follow-up from the leadership meeting is more of it's a living document. It's not an email you send out and say, here's what we talked about,
Yeah.
and everyone reads it and puts it away. This is something that lives somewhere visual,
Yep.
where it's either a conference room whiteboard that's dedicated to the project. It's the project manager's office,
Right.
okay, or the executive's office, that it's something that's up there that's constantly being watched.
Absolutely.
So,
Perfect. Yep. Great.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video on team leadership. And what we would like you to do is, if you like this video, go ahead and click on the like button down at the bottom and subscribe to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership so that you know when the next episode is going to come out. Hope you enjoyed today. I hope you learned something. I'm Lou Quinto.
I'm Craig Anderson.
Thanks for joining us.